The silence was wrong. Space was never this quiet. Above Earth, thousands of unknown ships floated in perfect formation. They did not move. They did not attack. They just watched. From the ground, people looked up at the sky. At first, they thought it was a strange cloud, or maybe a trick of light. But then the shapes became clear. Huge. Dark. Endless. Cities stopped. The cars froze in the middle of roads. People walked out of their homes and stood still. No one spoke. No one understood what they were seeing. For the first time in human history, humanity was not alone. Inside Earth's main orbital command station, high above the planet, the world's leaders had gathered. The room was large and cold. A long table stood in the center. Around it sat generals, scientists, and politicians from every major nation. Screens covered the walls, showing one thing only: the fleet. Thousands of alien ships surrounded Earth like a cage. No one spoke for a long time. The fear was too heavy. A general finally broke the silence. "They have not fired," he said quietly. "Not yet." A scientist adjusted her glasses, her hands shaking. "Their technology is far beyond ours. We cannot even scan most of their systems." Another voice joined. "Maybe they are peaceful." No one answered that, because deep down no one believed it. Suddenly, every screen in the room flickered. At the same time, across the entire planet, televisions, phones, radios, everything came to life. The signal was everywhere. The room went completely still. A symbol appeared on the screens. Strange. Sharp. Not human. Then, the voice. Cold. Calm. Powerful. It did not sound angry. It did not sound emotional. It sounded certain. "People of Earth." The words were clear. Perfect. As if the voice had studied every human language. "This is the Galactic Council." A wave of fear moved through the room. Some people leaned forward. Others held their breath. The voice continued. "Your planet has been observed for a long time." Images flashed on the screens: human history. Wars. Cities. Rockets launching into space. "You are a young species. Divided. Unstable." No one argued, because it was true. "You now stand at the edge of a greater galaxy." The image changed again. Countless stars. Endless space. Civilizations beyond imagination. "You are not ready." A pause. The silence felt heavier than before. Then the message came. "You are now under the authority of the Galactic Council." A few people in the room stood up in anger. "What does that mean?" someone whispered. But the voice did not stop. "You will surrender your planet peacefully." The words hit like a shockwave. Across Earth, people gasped. Some shouted. Some cried. In the command room, one leader slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane." But the voice continued, calm as ever. "If you accept, your species will be preserved." Preserved, not free. "If you refuse, your planet will be destroyed." Silence. Total silence. Even the air felt frozen. Then came the final line. "You have 1 hour to decide." The screens went black. The signal ended. And just like that, humanity was alone again. But everything had changed. Minutes passed. No one moved at first. Then the room exploded into chaos. "We cannot fight them. They will destroy us in seconds. We must surrender." "No. We cannot trust them." Voices shouted over each other. Fear turned into panic. A scientist spoke loudly, trying to be heard. "If we surrender, we lose everything. Our freedom, our future. And if we don't," a general interrupted, "we lose our planet." The argument grew louder. Outside, the fleet still waited. Silent. Watching. Time was moving. Inside the room, a large digital clock began counting down. 59:12. 58:47. 58:03. Every second felt like a hammer. Across the world, people reacted in different ways. Some prayed. Some cried. Some prepared to say goodbye to their families. Others stared at the sky, refusing to believe this was real. On social media, messages spread fast. "Is this the end? What should we do? Can we fight them?" No one had answers. Back in the command room, the argument had not stopped. A politician stood up. We must think about survival. Surrender is the only logical choice. A military commander shook his head. And live as slaves? Better than being dead. The room fell silent again, because that was the truth no one wanted to say. Then something unexpected happened. A man in a simple uniform stood up. He was not famous, not powerful, just a mid-level officer. Most people in the room did not even know his name. But when he stood, something changed. He did not shout. He did not argue. He just spoke.
Calm. Clear.
If we surrender today, we are no longer human. The words were simple, but they hit harder than anything else. No one replied. The officer looked around the room. At that point, he continued, we are just another controlled species, living but not free. Silence. Even the loudest voices had nothing to say. Outside, the fleet remained still, waiting, watching. The clock continued to count down. 45:21, 44:59, 44:10. Humanity had a choice. Surrender and live under control, or refuse and face destruction. No one knew what the right answer was. But deep inside, something was growing. Not fear. Something stronger. The beginning of defiance. And far above Earth, inside the largest alien ship, the Galactic Council watched. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They had seen it many times before. Young species always made the same choice. They always gave up. It was logical. It was predictable. It was easy. But this time, something felt different. Back on Earth, the clock kept ticking. And the world waited for a decision that would change everything. The clock did not stop. Every second felt louder now. Inside the command room, no one was calm anymore. The earlier silence had turned into something worse. Pressure. Heavy, crushing pressure. The number on the screen kept falling. 39:12. 38:47. 38:03. Time was running out. Outside the station windows, the alien fleet still waited. Perfect formation. No movement. No warning shots. That made it more terrifying. They were not in a hurry, because they were sure of the outcome. Across Earth, fear spread like a storm. In one city, a mother held her child close, whispering soft words she didn't fully believe. In another, a group of people gathered in the streets, staring up at the sky, hoping someone, anyone, would save them. In military bases, soldiers stood ready, even though they knew their weapons might do nothing. Fighter jets waited on runways. Missiles were armed. Satellites were pointed at the fleet. But deep inside, everyone understood one thing. This was not a fair fight. Back in the command room, the debate grew more intense. We are out of options, one leader shouted. We must surrender now before it's too late. Another slammed his fist on the table. And trust them? They already called us unstable. They said they will preserve us. Preserve is not the same as freedom. The room split into two sides. One side wanted survival at any cost. The other wanted dignity even if it meant death. In the corner of the room, the same quiet officer stood still. He did not argue anymore. He just watched, listening, thinking, because he understood something the others did not. This was not just a choice about survival. This was a choice about what humanity truly was. The clock kept moving. 30:00. Half the time was gone. The tension in the room grew unbearable. A scientist spoke again, her voice shaking but determined. They said they studied us, she said. That means they know our history, our wars, our mistakes. Yes, a general replied, and that is exactly why we cannot win. No, she said softly. It means they think they understand us. The room went quiet. What are you saying? Someone asked. She took a breath. I'm saying maybe they are wrong. Above Earth, inside the massive alien flagship, tall figures stood around a glowing table. They were not human. Their forms were different, taller, sharper, their eyes glowing with cold light. They watched Earth carefully. One of them spoke. They are taking too long. Another replied, They are emotional. It is expected. They will surrender, a third said. They always do. The first one nodded slowly.
Yes.
Fear always wins. Back on Earth, the argument reached its breaking point. We vote, one leader said. Right now. The room agreed. One by one, they gave their answers. Surrender. 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 Refuse. Surrender. Refuse. The votes were close. Too close. The final decision came down to one last vote. All eyes turned toward the quiet officer. He had not spoken since earlier. Now, every person in the room waited for him. The officer looked at the screen, then at the people around him, then back at the clock. 22:14. He closed his eyes for a moment, not in fear, but in thought. Then he spoke. We refuse. Silence. No one argued this time, because deep down, they already knew. The final decision was made. A single message was prepared. No long speech. No emotional words. Just a simple response.
Clear. Direct.
Human. The message was sent. Across space, it traveled toward the alien fleet. Inside the command room, no one breathed. Seconds passed. Then, the alien fleet responded. The same cold voice returned. This time, it felt different. Slightly sharper. Message received. A pause. You have chosen defiance. The room stayed silent. No one moved. This decision is illogical. Another pause. You will now face the consequences. The signal cut. For a moment, nothing happened. No explosions. No movement. Just silence. The same heavy silence from before. But now, it felt like the calm before something terrible. Then, the fleet moved. All at once. Thousands of ships shifted position in perfect sync. Massive weapons began to glow. Red light spread across the darkness of space. Inside the command room, alarms exploded. Energy spike detected. They are targeting our satellites. Brace for impact. On Earth, people screamed as the sky lit up. Bright red beams cut through space.
Fast. Precise. Deadly.
The first strike hit. Human satellites vanished in seconds. Communication systems went dark. Defense platforms exploded into fire. The war had begun. Inside the alien flagship, the Council watched carefully. They expected chaos. They expected collapse. They expected surrender, even now, because no species ever stood their ground after the first strike. Fear always broke them. Always. But on Earth, something unexpected happened. Human forces did not retreat. They did not surrender. They responded. Missiles launched from hidden bases. Fighter jets roared into the sky. Defense systems activated across the planet. It was not perfect. It was not enough. But it was resistance. Inside the command room, the quiet officer looked at the screens. Explosions. Losses.
Chaos.
But also, action. He spoke again, calm as before. This is only the beginning. The others looked at him. Some still afraid. Some now angry. And some ready. Above Earth, the alien fleet paused for a fraction of a second. Just long enough to notice something strange. Something unexpected. Something they had not seen before. Humanity was not breaking. And for the first time, the Galactic Council began to wonder. Did they make a mistake? The sky was no longer silent.
It burned.
Red light tore across the darkness above Earth as the alien fleet began its attack. Massive beams of energy moved faster than anything humans had ever seen. From the ground, it looked like the stars themselves were falling. The first explosions came without warning. High above the planet, defense satellites vanished in bright flashes. One moment they were there, the next gone. Inside the orbital command station, alarms screamed. Multiple impacts detected. Satellite grid collapsing. We are losing control of orbit. The screens filled with chaos. Red warnings blinked everywhere. For a brief moment, it felt like the end had already arrived. On Earth, people watched in horror. A father stood on a rooftop, holding his son's hand tightly as they looked up. The boy asked a simple question. Are we going to die? The father did not answer. He could not. Back in the command room, leaders struggled to keep control. Activate all defense systems. Launch countermeasures. Protect major cities. Orders flew in every direction. But the truth was clear. They were already losing. The alien fleet moved with perfect precision. Their ships did not rush. They did not panic. Each strike was planned, measured, controlled. They were not trying to destroy Earth completely. Not yet. They were sending a message. You cannot win. Inside the alien flagship, the Council observed the battle. Large displays showed Earth's defenses failing one by one. One member spoke, calm and cold. They resist longer than expected. Another replied, it changes nothing. They will surrender soon. The first one nodded.
Yes.
They always do after the first loss. But something unusual began to happen. Small signals appeared across the human network. Hidden channels. Encrypted communications. At first, the aliens ignored them. They seemed weak, disorganized. But they were not. Back on Earth, deep beneath the surface, in a classified bunker, a group of engineers and scientists worked fast. Screens glowed in the dark room. Old systems came back to life. Machines that had been forgotten. Weapons that had never been used. One engineer spoke quickly. System Delta is ready. Another replied, are you sure it will work? No, he said honestly. But it's all we have. Above the planet, something changed. A section of space near the alien fleet flickered. At first, it looked like a glitch. Then,
A blast.
a powerful explosion struck one of the alien ships. Not large enough to destroy it, but enough to damage it. Inside the command room, everyone froze. Did we just hit them? A technician checked the data. Yes, we did. It was the first successful strike.
Small.
But real. The alien fleet reacted immediately. Several ships turned toward the source of the attack.
Scanning. Searching.
Trying to understand. Inside the flagship, the council watched closely. What was that? One asked. Unknown weapon, another replied. That is not possible. They are adapting. The word hung in the air. Adapting. Back on Earth, more hidden systems activated. Old satellites, once thought useless, powered on. Decommissioned defense stations began to move again. Even damaged ships joined the fight. Humanity was using everything. Every idea. Every forgotten project. Every last chance. The second strike came faster. Another alien ship was hit. This time, the damage was worse. Its shields flickered. Its movement slowed. Inside the command room, hope appeared for the first time. They are not invincible. The quiet officer nodded slightly. No, he said. They just think they are. But the aliens were not weak. Their response was immediate and brutal. A massive beam fired from the flagship. It cut through space like a blade. Seconds later, a human defense station disappeared. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. The room fell silent again. Hope was still there. But now it was mixed with reality. This war would not be easy. On Earth, fighter jets launched into the sky. Pilots knew the risk. They knew they might not return.
But they went anyway.
Because this was their home. High above the clouds, the first human pilots faced the alien fleet. The scale was overwhelming. Their ships were small, fragile, slow. Compared to the enemy, they looked like nothing. But they did not turn back. Target locked, one pilot said. Stay in formation, another replied. Let's show them we're still here. They moved forward. Straight into danger. Missiles launched. Explosions followed. Some hit.
Some missed.
But it did not matter. Because they were fighting. Inside the alien fleet, confusion began to grow. These attacks are inefficient, one council member said. Yes, another replied. But they continue. Why? No one answered. Because the answer was something they did not fully understand. Humans did not fight only to win. They fought because they refused to stop. Back in the command room, the quiet officer watched everything. Losses. Victories. Chaos. He understood something important now. This is not about strength, he said softly. It's about time. A leader looked at him. Time for what? He replied. Time to learn. And that was the moment everything changed. Because humans were already learning. From every attack. From every mistake. From every loss. They were adapting faster than the enemy expected. Above Earth, the alien fleet paused again. Not long. Just a moment. But it was enough. Enough to notice the pattern. Enough to feel something new. Not fear. Not yet. But something close. Uncertainty. For the first time in a very long time, the Galactic Council was not completely sure of victory. And below them, humanity was just getting started. The war did not slow down, but it changed. At first, it was chaos, explosions, panic, and desperate defense. Now, it became something else. Something smarter. Something dangerous. Inside the orbital command station, the noise had faded. Not because the war was over, but because people had stopped shouting. Now they were thinking. Screens still showed destruction across Earth's orbit. Ships lost. Stations gone. Systems failing. But mixed into that chaos, there was a pattern. The quiet officer stood near the main display, watching carefully. "Replay the last 5 minutes," he said. A technician nodded. The screen shifted. Data flowed backward. Movements repeated. Alien ships fired in perfect lines. Their attacks followed exact timing. Their formations stayed clean and organized. Too clean. "They don't improvise," the officer said. A scientist looked closer. "What do you mean?" "They follow patterns," he replied. "Precise patterns." Around the room, others began to notice it too. Every alien attack had structure. Every movement had logic. Every response was predictable if you watched long enough. "They are efficient," one general said. "Yes," the officer answered. "But that is also their weakness." The room went quiet, because for the first time, someone was not talking about survival. They were talking about opportunity. Above Earth, the alien fleet adjusted its position again. More ships moved forward. More weapons charged. They were increasing pressure, trying to force the end faster. Inside the alien flagship, the Council observed with calm confidence. "Human resistance continues," one member said. "It is ineffective," another replied. "They are wasting resources. They will collapse soon." Everything still seemed under control. Everything still seemed predictable. But on Earth, something different was happening. In a hidden control center deep underground, human strategists gathered. Maps of space filled the walls. Red dots marked alien ships. Blue dots marked human forces. The numbers were not equal. Not even close. But that no longer mattered. "We cannot fight them directly," one strategist said. "Then we don't," another replied. The quiet officer's voice came through the communication line. "Change the battlefield." Orders spread across the planet. Not loud, not obvious, but precise. Human ships began to move in strange ways. Instead of forming lines, they broke apart. Small groups split off. Some moved behind debris. Some powered down, becoming invisible for short moments. Some even retreated on purpose. At first, it looked like weakness, like fear, like confusion. The alien fleet reacted instantly. They followed. They adjusted. They continued their perfect formation. But now, something was slightly off. A human pilot spoke over the radio. "They're chasing us." "Good," came the reply. "Keep moving." Small human ships led alien vessels into narrow paths between destroyed satellites, into fields of debris, into areas where large ships could not move easily. Then, traps. Hidden mines activated. Explosions hit from unexpected angles. Signals jammed communication lines. Alien ships lost coordination for brief seconds. Not long. Just enough. Inside the alien flagship, warning signals appeared. Formation disruption detected. Communication delay in Sector 7.
How?
Unknown interference. The council members looked at each other. This had not happened before. "They are adapting," one said again. "But this is inefficient," another insisted. "Yes," the first replied. "But it is working." Back in the command room, the energy had changed. People were no longer afraid. They were focused.
Learning.
Adjusting. "Track their response time," the officer said. A technician responded. They react within seconds. Too fast, the officer replied. What does that mean? It means they depend on coordination. The room understood. If the aliens worked as one, then breaking that connection would weaken them. New orders were sent. More jamming signals. More distractions. More unpredictable movement. Human ships began attacking from strange angles.
Quick strikes.
Then disappear.
Hit. Run. Hide.
Return. The war became messy. Unpredictable.
Confusing.
And that was something the Galactic Council was not used to. Inside the flagship, frustration began to grow. This is disorder, one member said. They are abandoning logic. No, another replied slowly. They are using a different kind of logic. Below, on Earth, the quiet officer watched the data change. Alien formations were no longer perfect. Their timing was slightly off. Their reactions slower. They are thinking too much, he said. A scientist looked confused. Isn't that good? Not in a fight, he replied. Hesitation creates openings. And humans were ready to use those openings. Another coordinated strike began. Small teams targeted key ships. Not the biggest. Not the strongest. But the most important. Communication relays. Support vessels. Control nodes. One by one, they were hit. The alien fleet did not fall. But it shook. Inside the flagship, alarms sounded again. Multiple system disruptions. Loss of signal in outer formation. This is escalating. The council remained silent for a moment. Then one of them spoke, slowly. They are not fighting to win. Another looked at him. Then what are they doing? He answered. They are fighting to survive and learn. Back on Earth, the officer looked at the screen again. For the first time since the war began, he allowed himself a small smile. Because now, the battlefield was different. This was no longer a one-sided attack. This was no longer fear versus power. Now,
it was a contest.
And humanity had just entered the game. Above Earth, the alien fleet adjusted once more. But this time, it was not perfect. And for the first time, the Galactic Council felt something unfamiliar. Pressure. Not enough to fear. Not yet. But enough to understand one thing. This war was not going to be easy. And humanity was far more dangerous than they had expected.
The war had changed.
It was no longer about survival alone. Now it was about finding a way to win. Inside the orbital command station, the atmosphere was different. Not calm, not safe, but focused. Every screen showed movement, patterns, signals. Human forces were still outnumbered, still weaker, but no longer helpless. Zoom in on Sector 9, the quiet officer said. The main screen shifted. In the center of the alien fleet, something stood out. A massive ship, larger than all the others. Darker, more protected, more important. A scientist leaned forward. That's not just another warship. No, the officer replied. It's the center. Data began to flow across the screen. Energy readings, signal traffic, command lines. Everything pointed to one conclusion. That ship is controlling the fleet, the scientist said quietly. A general frowned. You're saying if we destroy it? Their coordination collapses, the officer finished. The room went silent, because everyone understood what that meant. A chance. A very small, very dangerous chance. But it's heavily protected, another officer said. We can't get close. The quiet officer did not look away from the screen. We don't need many ships, he said. We need the right ones. Deep inside a hidden base, a small group of pilots prepared for a mission. No speeches. No celebration. Just quiet understanding. They knew the truth. This was a one-way mission. One pilot tightened his gloves. Another checked his controls. A third looked at a small photo attached inside his cockpit. Family. Home. Everything he might never see again. Mission briefing. A voice said over the speaker. The quiet officer appeared on the screen. You are not attacking the fleet, he said. You are going through it. The pilots listened carefully. You will not engage unless necessary. Your goal is the flagship. He paused. If you succeed, the war changes. If you fail, we lose everything. No one spoke, because nothing needed to be said. Then one pilot smiled slightly. Guess we don't fail. Above Earth, the alien fleet continued its attack. But now, something was different. Human resistance was stronger, more organized, more dangerous. Small strikes hit key targets. Signals disrupted communication again. The fleet was still powerful, but no longer perfect. Inside the alien flagship, the Council watched with growing concern. They are targeting our systems again. They are learning too fast. This is not normal behavior. One of them stepped closer to the display. Focus on their movement patterns. The screen zoomed in. Human ships moved in strange paths. Not random, not chaotic, directed. They are planning something, the council member said. At that exact moment, the strike team launched. 5 small human ships broke away from the main defense line.
Fast.
Silent. Focused. They moved straight toward the alien fleet. Multiple incoming targets. An alien system reported. Small vessels. Minimal threat. Ignore, one council member said. That was their mistake. The human ships entered the outer layer of the fleet. Immediately, danger surrounded them. Massive alien ships towered above them. Weapons charged. Energy built. Stay low, the lead pilot said. Follow the path. They moved between ships. Close. Very close. So close they could see the surface details of alien technology. Missiles incoming. Evasive maneuvers. One ship was hit. It exploded instantly. No time to react. Keep moving, the lead pilot shouted. 4 ships remained. They pushed deeper. Through fire. Through chaos. Through impossible odds. Inside the flagship, alarms began to rise. Unknown vessels approaching inner sector. Interception required. Deploy defense units. For the first time, the fleet reacted with urgency. Back on Earth, everyone watched. No one spoke. No one moved. The mission was everything. Inside the fleet, the remaining ships reached the inner layer. The flagship was now visible. Massive.
Terrifying.
There it is, one pilot whispered. But the path was closing. Alien ships moved to block them. Weapons locked on. Too many targets, another pilot shouted. We won't make it. The lead pilot took a breath. Then made a decision. I'll clear the way. Before anyone could respond, his ship turned sharply. Straight toward the enemy. No, wait. Too late. He accelerated. Faster than before. Straight into a group of alien interceptors. For Earth. A massive explosion filled the screen. Alien ships were destroyed. The path opened. 3 ships remained. Silence filled the communication channel. But they did not stop. They could not stop. They moved forward. Closer. Closer. The flagship was right in front of them. Target locked, one pilot said. We have one shot. Behind them, alien ships closed in fast. Weapons ready. No escape. Fire on my mark, the lead pilot said. 3 seconds.
2.
1.
Now.
All remaining weapons fired at once. Everything they had. The attack hit.
Direct.
Powerful. For a moment, nothing happened. Then,
light.
A massive explosion erupted from the center of the flagship. Energy burst outward. Systems failed. Structure cracked. Inside the alien ship, alarms screamed. Critical damage. Core destabilizing. This is impossible. The flagship was falling apart. Across the fleet, signals broke. Communication failed. Coordination collapsed. Ships stopped moving in sync. Attacks became delayed. Formations broke apart. Chaos. The Galactic Council stood in silence. Watching. Understanding. They had made a mistake. Back on Earth, no one spoke. They just stared at the screen. Because for the first time, the alien fleet looked weak. And humanity had just changed the war forever. The explosion changed everything. For a moment, the battlefield went silent. Not because the war had ended, but because something impossible had just happened. The alien flagship, once untouchable, unstoppable, was breaking apart. Flames of energy spread across its massive surface. Bright cracks ran through its structure like lightning frozen in time. Then it began to fall. Across the alien fleet, confusion spread instantly. Ships that once moved in perfect unity now drifted slightly out of position. Commands were delayed. Signals were lost. Coordination was gone. Inside the orbital command station, no one spoke. They just watched, waiting, hoping, not daring to believe it yet. A technician finally whispered, "Their formation, it's breaking." Another added, "We are detecting signal loss across multiple sectors." The quiet officer stood still, eyes locked on the screen. Then he said softly, "They've lost control." That was the moment, the turning point. Above Earth, human forces saw it too. Pilots noticed the delay in enemy attacks. Defense systems reported fewer coordinated strikes. For the first time since the war began, the alien fleet hesitated. And humanity did not waste it. Full counterattack, the command was given. Missiles launched from hidden bases. Fighter jets surged forward. Remaining defense stations fired everything they had left. This time it was different. Alien ships tried to respond. But without the flagship, their timing was off. Some fired too early. Some too late. Some not at all. Small human ships moved through the gaps.
Fast. Precise.
Fearless. Explosions lit up space again. But now, they were not only human losses. Inside the alien fleet, panic began to grow. This is not possible. Our systems are failing. We cannot coordinate. Inside the damaged flagship, the Galactic Council stood in shock. The room around them flickered with failing power. Sparks fell from above. Alarms screamed without pause. One member stepped forward. "This species, they are not following expected behavior." Another replied, "They should have surrendered. They should have broken." But they didn't. The oldest member of the council spoke slowly. His voice, once calm and certain, now carried something new. "We misunderstood them." Silence followed, because now they all saw it. Humans were not strong because of their technology, not because of their numbers. They were strong because they refused to give up. Back on Earth, the battle continued. But now, hope had replaced fear. A pilot spoke over the radio, his voice filled with energy. "They're pulling back." Another confirmed, "Enemy ships are retreating from Sector 5. On the main screen in the command room, the truth became clear. Alien ships were turning away, not regrouping, not repositioning,
Retreating.
A leader stood up slowly. "Is this really happening?" The quiet officer nodded. "Yes," he said. "They are leaving." No cheers came at first, just disbelief. Then slowly, the room filled with sound, relief,
Shock.
emotion. Humanity had survived. Above Earth, the alien fleet continued to pull back. Ship after ship disappeared into the darkness of space. The massive presence that once surrounded the planet was fading, but before they were gone, a signal appeared again. The same symbol, the same voice. But this time, it was different. "People of Earth." The room fell silent again. "Your resistance has been noted." No insults, no threats, just acknowledgement. "You have demonstrated unexpected capability." A pause. The Galactic Council withdraws its claim. Those words echoed across the planet. Withdraws. They were not conquering. They were leaving. "Your species will remain independent." Another pause. Longer this time. "But know this." The voice softened slightly. Not weak, but respectful. "You are no longer ignored." The signal ended, and just like that, they were gone. The sky above Earth slowly returned to normal. The red glow disappeared. The stars became clear again. For the first time in hours, there was peace. Across the world, people stepped outside. They looked up, not in fear anymore, but in wonder. They were still here. In the command room, the quiet officer stood alone for a moment, watching the empty space where the fleet once stood. A leader approached him.
"You were right," he said.
The officer shook his head slightly. "No," he replied. "We all were." He looked back at the screen, at Earth, at everything they had protected. "We just needed to remember who we are." Days later, a message was sent from Earth. Not as a warning, not as a threat, but as a statement. It traveled far beyond the solar system, into the unknown. To anyone who might be listening, we are humanity. We did not choose this war, but we will never surrender our freedom. The message continued through space, past stars, past silent worlds, and somewhere, far away, other civilizations heard it. They listened, they watched, they understood. A new story had begun, not about a weak planet, not about a young species, but about something far more powerful. A species that refused to kneel, a species that turned fear into strength, a species that stood against the galaxy and did not fall. The story ended with one truth. Humanity may not be the strongest. It may not be the oldest.
It may not be the most advanced.
But when it comes to will, nothing in the universe compares. And now, the galaxy knows it.